Revelations, or the Apocalypse of St. John, chapter 18, starting at verse 1. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was enlightened with his glory. And he cried out with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every unclean spirit, and the hold of every unclean and hateful bird. Hello, everyone. I want to make this video to make people aware of what is going on in the world right now. A lot of people are getting some very bad information, and they're making very bad decisions as a result of the information they've been getting. And everything seems to be in a huge mess right now, but it's all right, because what is happening is the destruction, the taking apart of the Babylonian beast system that we have lived under for thousands of years. And it is kind of scary because, a lot of things were the thing is, even though the Babylonian beast system is wrong and evil, we're used to it. And so seeing it come apart is going to be hard for some people. And if you can just resign yourself to the fact that this Babylonian beast system is coming apart, and that what is to follow will be much better and more virtuous and good, and an excellent place to live. So just let the process go and try to remain calm in these times. So Babylon the Great is falling. Our government has been taken apart. We're now being managed by the military. In fact, all the countries of the world are being managed by their military. They're doing a very good job of taking it apart in a way that doesn't completely destroy people's lives. So, and what is playing out is to ease people into this leaving of Babylon. As it says in the scriptures, further down in chapter 4 of the Apocalypse of St. John, chapter 8, further down in chapter 18, in verse 4, it says, And I heard another voice from the heavens saying, Go out from her, my people, that you may not partake of her sins, and that you receive not her plagues. So, interesting word, plagues, because right now we are dealing with supposed mythical diseases that are plagues. Now, the thing is if you give into this fear and you take their, medical procedure, you will receive a plague. And people are starting to find this out. There are a lot of videos about this, and I can go into that later. But for right now, I'm just going to go give you a summary. So basically what the military is presenting to most of the world, except for us that keep an eye on little details that, we're like the ones that always look for the bloopers in the movie. So there's presenting something that is an illusion, but behind the scenes, this is how they're taking down the Babylonian beast system without completely upending all of society. And so some of the systems that they're taking down are, one of the ways you can avoid getting caught in the illusion is stop watching TV. And if you do watch TV, whatever the news is telling you, it's the opposite. So, for instance, the government is not non-existent right now because we were under the government of the Act of 1871, and you can look this up, and basically changed us from being governed by the people to be governed by a corporation whose head is in London. and whose head is the Queen of England. But when I say the Queen, she's the head of a lot of different countries. So the government is non-existent now because that has fallen. And also, under the Act of 1871, it started us being debtors to the central banks. Well, the central banks are all defunct now. So there's no more central bank. We have no more. The Federal Reserve note is as obsolete. The thing we call the almighty dollar is obsolete. We are converting over to a gold-backed currency. This was started by Putin a few months ago when he decided to gold back the ruble. If and all the other countries have to follow this rule, because if one person is trading in gold-backed currency, the others are worth nothing. So we have converted the dollar to a gold-backed dollar, and the person who is pretending to be Biden in the White House has supposedly spending all this money. But if the Federal Reserve is dead and the central banks are dead, he cannot write checks against the Federal Reserve. It's defunct. And also, nobody in Congress is being paid. The government is not. Nobody's being paid because there's no more money in the Federal Reserve. It has to go through a process where we're in the process of converting to a gold standard, and in that time, all assets are frozen. So you might see inflation going on right now, but that will ease out once we go to the gold standard, because there can be no inflation under the gold standard. The dollar is going to be what a dollar is in gold. So you can't just change the price of a dollar around. And that's all happening right now. Again, banking is complicated, so it has to go through a process. So right now nothing is happening. Or there are things happening, but it's not anything that you can see yet. Like a lot of the food, another part of the banking system, that's like a huge part of the Babylonian beast system, where they're using that debt instrument banking money magic that enriches certain peoples like the Rothschilds and the elites and leaves us deeper and deeper in debt. That's over. It's not going to happen anymore. There also is in our food, the reason we're having shortages right now is they have to get rid of some of this food because some of it is poisoned. Like the baby formula shortage. Turns out that there are huge shipments of baby formula that are poisoned. They have to get rid of them. And the thing is there are formula recipes. You can get in there and just make your own, and you'll find it's actually cheaper and better for the child than these chemical concoctions they pass off as baby formula. And so those are things that will change. We'll probably end up making more of our own food, cooking our own food instead of going out to restaurants. Eventually there will be restaurants, but all of this stuff that's part of the Babylonian beast system, all these chain fast food places, the corporate chain fast foods, the corporate chain shops that you find in the same ones in every shopping mall, those are all disappearing. That's all going away. This will be the age of small business. If you want to go get a burger, you're not going to be going to McDonald's, which by the way are closing down all over the place, or Burger King. You're going to go to Joe's bar, Joe's burger place, or like a little mom and pop place that makes burgers. You're gonna have, everything is gonna be smaller and more local. And these big corporations, they're dead, they're dying, they're not gonna make it. School, same thing. You're not going to go to the government schools that we call public school that just indoctrinate your children with garbage. Schools will be done locally. They'll be done by groups, a lot of homeschooling, private schools. It's like a lot of people say, well, this is terribly inconvenient because, you know, I don't want, they think of the school as a place where the kid goes every day. You're going to have to take more responsibility for your child's education. So that's changing over. Business and careers are going to be different. We're not going to have these big corporate chains. Again, think small businesses. Whatever thing you can do, start your own business. That's going to be the way of the out of the Babylon Beast system. We're not going to have these big companies who do big things. Even government's going to be much smaller. Now, some things that we're dealing with right now, the war. You know, everybody, if you watched what was on TV about what's going on with this war, you just flip it. So Ukraine is not winning the war. The war is almost over in Ukraine, and Russia has won. So, and I find this from actually looking at video footage of what's happening on the ground. And then also a lot of this whole war was just to launder money through Ukraine. You don't think that 40 billion, the pretend 40 billion of monopoly money that Biden just sent to Ukraine is going to help the war? No, it's it's money laundered through Ukraine for, you know, all the elites and their pals. And so you know, it's like these people, it's just the opposite. And the Ukrainians are not fighting for freedom. They've never been their own country. They were always part of Russia. And the people that the Russians are fighting against are the Nazis in Ukraine. And if you actually, rather than just watching what's on the news, actually dig in and try to find some of this footage, the raw footage, because everything on the news is like stuff from an old, you know, video game or you know, stuff that was from a, you know, a photo vault of, you know, something that happened like 8 years ago. They're not showing what's happening on the ground now. So this is part of their illusion that they're trying to keep in front of our eyes. Dig deeper, look deeper, and I'll go into some of these things in future videos. I just wanted to summarize. Same thing with the pandemic. You know, anybody who thinks this thing is a real pandemic now is grotesquely deluded. Now they have like the monkeypox. First of all, I have to say one thing about monkeypox, smallpox. If they are trying to inject you with something, that is not, and that's not going to treat the smallpox or the monkeypox. All of these, the smallpox vaccine was developed back in 1789 by Dr. Edward Jenner. It was not injected, it was scratched into the skin with a bifurcated needle. I got one of these when I was a kid because I'm old. And it's like it creates a little sore there. It's itchy. It's not smallpox. It's something called cowpox or vaccinia, which is where we get the word vaccine from. This treatment that Dr. Jenner invented back in 1789 to cure smallpox or to prevent smallpox. So you'd get an itchy little sore on your arm, and then your mom would yell at you not to scratch it, and then finally it would crust over and fall over and leaves a little scar on your arm, just a tiny one. And so that's what the real smallpox is. Now, what this sauce they've developed at the CDC or whatever, for, you know, the Gates Foundation developed to treat smallpox, it can't be any good. Trust me, it can't be any good. There are people dying left and right from the last vaccine they gave you. You know, for the COVID, also known as the common cold, and then and now and this is not even the end of it. Dr. Luc Montagnier, who was probably the most fact-checked person on the internet. He was only a Nobel Prize-winning virologist, so what did he know, right? And he said this thing is going to cause a lot of death because it's going to change the DNA because of the mRNA component in it, and people will start developing severe autoimmune responses and die. And that is actually takes a while, so it's not something that's going to happen right away. He said like it's 1 to 2 years out, because it takes a while for all your DNA to change, but it doesn't have to all change. It only needs some of it to change. You know, I don't know, 30%, and then you get your massive autoimmune response. There's a whole bunch of reasons for it. Like I said, I've been studying this. So use your own judgment. I would not take any injections. I used to not be anti-vax, but when I've seen what they've been doing lately, I am totally anti. I don't trust it at all. I'm anti-vax now. So let's get on to the good part. Our Earth is traveling through the galaxy and is entering this region of light. And when it does this, it's going to change the Earth. The Earth is going to ascend. Now there's a lot to ascension. Basically, the Earth as we know it was in 3rd density, and now it's ascending, in the process of ascending into 4th density. And what this means is that humans will change, or if they need to work on the spiritual aspects of their life. It doesn't necessarily have to be Christian, although I think that Christianity provides a better vehicle for this ascension process than maybe other spiritualities, but that's just my opinion. Basically, you need to learn that everyone is connected. It's like, what did Jesus say? He says, what is the first and greatest commandment? The first and greatest commandment is you love God. He says, that's correct. And the second is like unto it, that you love your neighbor as yourself. So that's what the ascension process helps us. It's what it's part of, is learning that we are all connected to God. And the more we recognize and accept our connection to God through prayer and meditation, meditation and prayer, to connect to God and kind of like exercise our connection to God. That's part of it. And then also realize that because we're connected to God, we are also connected to each other. So again, here we go. The 2 great laws: love God and love your neighbor. And so part of that is to learn to stop hating. Get rid of the hate, get rid of the anger. Realize that, first of all, it helps to get rid of your ego, because a lot of anger and hatred is because of excessive pride and and hubris, really. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold, so I won't be able to talk much longer, because if I talk too much, I get into a coughing fit. Okay, the last bit, just to give you a step towards the next, the ascension. a little bit more on the ascension. So when we enter fifth density ascension, which will happen as we get into this deeper into this band of light in the galaxy, then the entire Earth will go to fifth ascension, fifth density, and we will begin to kind of become part of the love of God. I mean, it will enter into us so much that we'll will literally be part of the love of God. And then, like, things like material things that we worry about, like how are we going to get our food, where are we going to live, all that, what will happen is because we just accept that we're part of the love of God, all of these things will just happen as they're needed. And so that's going to be kind of really amazing. We'll be able to heal ourselves because a lot of bad health is sin anyway. So get rid of the sin, start learning to love people in the true Christian sense of loving, and love God as is his due, and try to connect as much as possible to God, and connect as much as possible to your fellow human beings. And then agree to the ascension, because ascension is a part of will too. So, I mean, you can stay down at third density, which is what we're at, what we were at. Now we're moving into fourth density. And I'll go a little bit more into the ascension part, but it's important to learn to love God with all your heart and connect to God, and love your neighbor and connect to your neighbor. That means every other human being. And a good step towards that is somebody who's been unkind to you or did something harmful to you, forgive them. That is a huge step towards ascension, forgiving. And forgiving is not something that naturally comes to us. It's hard to forgive. And the way, I mean, because I was a pretty vengeful person. The way I figured out how to forgive is that I asked God to give me the grace to forgive. In other words, connect to God and he will show you how to forgive. And so anyway, that's all I have for right now. I didn't want to make these things too long. And I'll go into more detail about some of the other parts of it, and the ascension, what's the process of ascension, and all of this other stuff. We're leaving it all behind. We just need to figure out new ways of doing things for our own personal selves. So anyway, have a nice time. Have a nice day. Until next time. And I'll get back with you on some more information too.